Can you guys see him? Oh, now he can hear me.
Hello.
Hi, you're John Morgan. How you doing, sir?
How are you tonight?
Fantastic.
Good to see you. Yeah, good to see you.
Can you hear this?
Oh, he's gone.
He's off the line now. Casey's pick.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize for all the tech unprofessionalism.
Hey.
You're good to go on your.
All right, you're good. Okay, let me make sure I'm on the right notepad here. Okay, let's call to order this Monday, August 16, 2021, regular Newton Falls Council meeting. If you could turn off all devices or set them to vibrate and stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'll say the open prayer. Precious Lord, we thank you for the country that we live, the community that we live, and we just pray that you would just bring us together to do your business. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. Okay, Mr. Fritz, do you want me to call for the roll, or do you have?
I can, Your Honor.
Huh?
I can.
You got it? Okay, good. Thank you.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Here.
Mr. Bariak?
Here.
Ms. Bletzer?
Present.
Mr. Kropp? Mr. Kropp by phone. Mr. Kropp by phone.
There we go, present.
Okay. All right, that's everybody's. Special presentations, none. Public comments are limited to agenda items only. Your name, your address, 3 minutes unless previously requested. For additional time, we have one, and that's Mr. Fedorov. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Bud Fedorov, 321 Ridge Road, Newton Falls. And the reason I'm coming here is there's a lot of things about the smart meters that I haven't heard any answer to. Probably number one is, have we already bought these things? Because I understand Mr. George, when he said that one of our biggest expenses was because we've already got them. We would be out that money. Okay, if we got them, how was it paid for? The next one is the smart meter. Anyone that's got a computer knows that you don't just plug it in and everything works great. You have to have someone, an IT person, that can take care of it for you, that keeps it up, and gets it upgraded as you need it. Also, with any electronic device, you have the problem of hackers. Now, just recently, we had it with the hackers from Russia or wherever. They shut down the whole East Coast. They hacked the oil pipeline and more or less shut the whole oil pressure down all over the eastern United States. Schools, hospitals, large businesses with IT people. They're getting hacked. What protection do we have? Who's going to watch it? What is the cost for having malware being checked? The other one is, who's going to watch this? We hear that, okay, the water department can tell if you've got a leak. The electric department can tell you if you've got something. Who's going to watch this? We've got a small electric department, small water department. Who's going to sit there and watch these meters, and how are they going to get trained? You just park them in front of it and say, hey, if something goes wrong, do something. They won't be able to do anything if they haven't got any training. Also, with these meters themselves, if you've ever bought a computer, you know you've had it probably 6 months and the damn thing's out of date. who's going to keep this system up? This system that we have now, is it compatible for upgrading? Is it compatible with other smart meters in the area, or even in the United States? Or is this one of those one-off things there where you buy a swell little motor scooter from China and you can't get parts for it? Or do we do just like a lot of the European countries and the foreign countries are doing, China in particular, Japan, like with their electric cars? When the battery goes dead, they throw it away. It's not worth fixing. It's not worth replacing the battery. So we've got a whole lot of things that we haven't been told anything about. Also, one of the things that scares me is that the meter itself will shut off your electric. No one tells you nothing, don't have to. Flip the switch or poke the little button and your electric is shut off. Same thing with the water. They say, well, this is going to save money because we don't have to send anybody out there. How much does it cost to send someone out there compared to what these smart meters cost? We're not a large industrial community or large Cleveland or Akron or even Youngstown. We don't have that many shutoffs to make it worthwhile. If we are, I'd sure like to see what we're paying. Probably the one thing that worries me the most, people that know me, know my wife Susan, I'm her primary caregiver. She has COPD, is on oxygen all the time. Whether it's a mistake, whether it's a hack, whether it's just someone being funny, I don't know. They shut my electric off, her oxygen concentrator doesn't work. They shut the water off, and I don't think any of us could stay too long with just the water we've got in our hot water heater. So there's a whole lot of questions that have not been addressed. I've tried addressing them before. I have faith in this council that we'll look at it. People say, well, why didn't you come up here before? That was a waste of time. Anyone that's ever been up here before with this last group, it wouldn't have done any good, so I didn't do it. But with the people we have coming in, people we have now, I think we'll actually take a look at this. And with these meters, if we've already bought them, apparently there's a contract out for someone to install them. I don't think that was put out for bid. I know the purchase of the meters wasn't put out for bid. So what are we going to do with these things? Do we have to have them? Okay, someone gives you a crappy old car, and you say, well, gee, I got to keep this. I don't care what it costs me. I got to keep this going. I'm moving ahead. No, you're not moving ahead. This building right here, when it started out, looked like a heck of a deal. But the more we got into it, the more we found that all of these extra things that had to be done to, number one, get the building to do what you want. Number two, maintain it, do the adjustments. I think we need to take a whole good look at that smart meter to see if we're not getting into the same thing with something we have no idea what the final cost is going to be, what the final outcome. I don't see where it's just looking at it from what I've been told. I plan on opting out. So that's everybody's choice. That's probably going to be mine unless something happens that we find out what's going on. Because as it is right now, we were left something by a former city manager, and I personally don't think it's worthwhile to spend a whole lot of money to make it work, to make it worthwhile over what it's already costing us. Or it would cost to repair and replace our existing meters. Like I say, we're a village. Thank you.
Okay, that's all the 10-minute people. If anybody would like to come up and address the council, to give your name and your address.
Katie Carl, 128 West Quarry. There's a couple of things I have. One of them, when I saw a copy of the agenda, was number 5 under new business. there's disciplinary action against one of the council members, and I don't understand it, because if there's going to be any disciplinary actions taken, it should be across the board for everybody that has had any issues with everything that's been happening throughout the whole time everyone's been on, for all council members. So for one, excuse me, for everybody that is on council, the rules apply to everybody. For the contract that was negotiated for the AMP program, the meters and everything else that was just spoken about up here, I don't know if that is going to be added to your agenda this evening or not. I did hear talk of that. That was already worked out. The contract, it's all in the contract. That's all, it's all in there. That was discussed in some instances ad nauseum. In others, no, it was not. It was not. It wasn't really clear. But everything was worked out. Millions of dollars were spent. Contracts were worked out. How it was going to be done was worked out. Some of us have already had calls, gotten appointments, etc. What are we supposed to do as citizens? And now you're going to walk all of this back. If you change the dollar amount of what was already agreed to, how much more is that going to cost us as citizens? That's not transparency, and that's not being good stewards for us as a community. If you change the amount that was already agreed upon from $5 million to $10 million in your new ordinance that you've got going, what's that going to do for us as citizens? Is that going to cause us to have to pay more for electric, even though you have in there a 20% reduction? What are you trying to do to us? You know, raise the dollar amount to AMT and then all of a sudden put in a 20% reduction in the same ordinance and say we're getting a deal? That's not a deal. That's not a deal at all. That's you know, robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's not helping us at all.
Okay. If
Thank you.
Finish up. Thank you.
Julie Lemon, 2750 East River Road. I would like to actually say that for number 5 under new business, I believe it's because an accusation was made and the charter, it actually has rules against that. So that's pretty clear and dry. Also, when it comes to the deal for AMI, electric's supposed to make $6 million this year, and it was supposed to be sold for 4.2. Obviously, 10 million sounds like a better number, and 6 million sounds like a better number, more than 4.2. And also, it's a tabled motion, but it's nobody's here for finance, and we have a finance director that, you know, is waiting to come back, and I urge council to bring her back. Thank you.
John Richards, 212 Albert Street. 3 quick points. The questions that Mr. Fedorov had, if we'd had open meetings where we'd been permitted to ask questions and follow-up questions, most of that information could have been made available to the public, but it was not. The other thing is there are ordinances tonight to amend the agenda items where they have to have sponsorship, and several of those ordinances, what they do is they're built really to help rebuild trust, which has been missing for a long, long time. And this will keep the, to use the smart meters as an example, to this day, no one has stood up and said, that was my idea, because they're so highly unpopular But yet, if it had been put on the agenda with a sponsor, at least we would know who to go to say, why did you put that on there, and answer some questions for me. So I urge you to pass these ordinances that helped to rebuild trust. Thank you.
I just wanted to, Rick Curlin, 611 North Canal Street, Newton Falls, Ohio. I wanted to address, first of all, the smart meters. I thought that was well said. I don't have any idea what the smart meters has to do with AMT. None. I don't understand that. The ruling with the AMT, and that was for transmission lines and other merchandise that was going to be sold, was settled by the Board of Elections, and that is going to have a referendum. So the public will have the opportunity to decide whether or not they want the transmission lines and other equipment to be sold. And it's as simple as that. It's not complicated in any way. That will be decided by a referendum. And the other thing, smart meters, that has been already contracted for, and that has been decided. That was decided by the fact that the contract by the city with Disciplinary and that part of it was passed in an emergency. That was not referendable. That was decided by the courts. As far as what the council can do, I think there still is an option, in my opinion, that they could decide as far as the rates go. I don't think that question was ever decided. That would be up to city council to decide that. It's nice to have everybody here, and hopefully we'll have a nice meeting, but that is the gist of everything. That's what happened. It's not complicated. They made a decision. Decision was made and for the referendum, and that is for the transmission lines and other materials. As far as the smart meters, I did opt out, but for basically the same reasons that were given. But that is each individual's responsibility, and the city's to make sure everything is done legally. Thank you very much, and those are the facts. Thank you.
William George, North Jackson, Electric Superintendent. I'm here to speak for a couple things. I've heard everybody talking about the AMI and the AMT stuff. I just want everybody to understand AMI is for the smart meters, AMT is for the transmission, so you get the T for transmission. Most everybody knows how I feel on the AMT. You know, I've been against it all along, but certain people would stop me from speaking on that, so just let that be known. I want to talk about your 25-2021 for the opt-out for the smart meters. I again urge you to do not pass this. I know people are going to be against me on this, but if you opt out, if you drop this rate too low, everybody will opt out. This money that was spent on all of our electric meters and water meters and everything is just going to be wasted money. I mean, it's already sitting there, it's paid for. From what I understand, it's paid for already. We have it, it's up and working. They've already started deploying water meters this week, so that's already going out now. Like I said, I know there's certain circumstances, you know, Tessa, I spoke to you about where the people in the township, you know, have opt out for First Energy and for New Falls. I understand. I think that maybe there should be something done with a rate for them, maybe so they don't have to pay twice. The city, if you have both utilities, my thoughts, I don't think there should be a change in it. I think you're just going to go against what we've already done, and now that money's going to sit there, and that technology is just going to go to waste because it's sitting there doing nothing. So that's all I have.
Okay, anybody else? All right, if not, we'll go into reports. Mr. Zimmerman, do you have anything for Ward 1?
Yes, sir. I attended the Parks and Rec Committee meeting. Ms. Bletzer will address that in her report on what was discussed there. Tomorrow I'll be attending a fire board meeting. On the 24th, there's going to be a reception at the community center. I will be attending that, and that's all that I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Boriak, you have anything for Ward 2?
Just a couple of things. I was down on Washington Street. They seem to have finished the work. They've reseeded and done a pretty decent job down there. I don't know how well it's worked yet. We've had some rains. I haven't had anybody call me. But they've patched the roads and they've taken away all the extra dirt and everything. And it seems to be a decent job. If anybody does have any complaints, would want to get a hold of me, I'd do the best I can to investigate it. That's all I have right now.
Okay.
Mr. Klein.
Ms. Bletzer, do you have anything for Ward 3?
I'm looking for my notes from my Park and Rec meeting, and I don't seem to have them here. My apologies.
It's okay.
Our next Park and Rec meeting should be coming up on the last Tuesday in August. That's all.
Okay. Mr. Kropp, you have anything for at large? Tom, is he tuned in?
Yeah. There we go. No, I couldn't get on you. It's on his end.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. Good evening, everybody. Mayor, council, public. I have some notes here I'd like to go over. On August 3rd, Tuesday, August 3rd, I was attempting to attend the planning and zoning meeting, and it turned out it was actually a Parks and Rec meeting. I wasn't informed that the planning and zoning had been moved. So I got to sit in on the Parks and Rec meeting with Mrs. Slutzer and Mrs. Zimmerman. During the meeting, I spoke with Mr. Stinson and Mr. Rusko, and I was able to, during that meeting, find out they hadn't been aware of the paddle enhancement grant. So I was able to have Bill King send it over to all the members of the council, all the members of the Parks and Rec Committee. I believe that there was a council that were there that meeting got that information. On Wednesday, August 4th, we had an emergency meeting about the submission of the referendums to the Trumbull County Board of Elections. That we ended up, I believe we ended up not voting at that meeting because Kathy claimed that she had already turned those items in, and we got some details about that, so those were submitted without issue. On Friday, August 6th, we actually scheduled and attempted to have an announcement of a proposal with Mr. Stuart White of White Dots in regards to some rumors about potential business coming to New Falls. That meeting and that announcement was actually kind of scrapped and postponed. An agreement among some of the members there. We decided that it was probably better to just hold off and wait on that. So potentially there may be another announcement moving forward. I'll talk to the city manager, Mrs. Pretty, and discuss how we want to move forward with that and the rest of the economic development team. There were several members in attendance there for that particular meeting. So let's see, on Sunday, August 8th, was Mr. Lynch's, our former village manager Lynch, was his final day. I believe everything was turned in and there was a smooth transition from what I understand. I believe he spent several days working with Mrs. Pretty to try to get her up to speed on trying to make a smooth transition, which I think is important. On Monday, August 9th, we had a special meeting. That meeting was to appoint Mrs. Pretty as the interim village manager. I also received on that day, I received an email from Rachel Rankin, the assistant principal at the junior high school here in New Falls. And she included a long newsletter. It's about 11, I think it was an 11-page PDF, which detailed a lot of the things that are going on at the school. I would recommend people take a look at that newsletter. I believe I sent it to Mr. Gregory, and I'm hoping that it can be put on either the city social media, whether it be Facebook or on the website, or both, hopefully. So that way people in town can get that information as far as the newsletter is concerned. So thank you, Mrs. Rankin, for sending that out. Let's see, I've got, on Wednesday, August 11th, I received some emails. I received an email from Tom Colosimo, who is the Vice President of the NFACA, the Newton Falls Area Commerce Association, and also the owner and operator of Fieldview Acres right downtown here in our historic downtown area, with a couple interesting and exciting emails potentially. One would be DORA, which I don't know if people are familiar with what DORA is. It's actually called the Designated Outdoor Refreshment Area, and that has been sent to our Planning and Zoning Committee and our zoning inspector, Mr. Stimper, I believe, to see if there's something we can do. So the community garage sale is coming up August 20th to August 22nd, so that's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's going to be citywide. So community garage sale, keep that in mind. And on Saturday, the 21st of August, during the garage sale, we're going to have Dicker Day, which is Newton Falls Area Commerce Association going to be hosting Dicker Day, where people Okay, so the next event is going to be August 21st. It's going to be a Cars and Coffee event, and that's going to be at the City Building at Village Hall from 9 a.m. to noon. I don't specifically have who's actually putting it on, and again, Mr. Carlson can respond to that. There's going to also be another Music in the Park event put on by the Area Commerce Association at the Vivo at Red Falls from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. on August 28th, which is a Saturday. Mr. Jim Gold's going to be playing once again. He played recently, it was fantastic. A lot of people showed up and everybody really enjoyed themselves. I think that went over really well, so we're hoping to have those Music in the Park events. And then on August 28th is going to be the Newton Falls Farmers Market from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Newton Falls Community Park by the Community Center. And then on August 28th, which is a Saturday as well, same day, it's going to be a Plug It Up, and that's going to be put on by the Heritage Board, and that's going to be from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. On August 28th at the Community Center. And then there'll be another Music in the Park on September 11th, but we'll make another announcement for that at the next meeting. Then on Thursday, August 12th, there was a board election meeting where they certified the results for former Councilwoman Grayheimer's recall election. She was recalled, and she's no longer a councilperson. I would actually make a note that our agenda today actually has her listed as a councilperson, so that is correct. There were other items as well, referendum items in regards to the administrative building, to the village hall. And the Board of Elections deemed that as administrative. Hold on, guys, I have a loud siren going on myself. I apologize. The other part of that was the transmission line purchase. That was being legislated by the election, so that, as Mr. Curley mentioned, his address, that would be on the ballot for the referendum. Then on Friday, August 13th, I received an invitation as well. I think Mr. Zimmerman alluded to this. There's going to be an event at the Community Center, the USO building, put on by the Heritage Board. It was led by President Connie Smith-Talcott, and it's from 5 to 7. It's going to be a reception to kind of explore the community center, see what they have there, and see what we can hope to expect moving forward. And then also, I was reached out to by Teresa Barber, who's a resident over on Scott Street, about a meet and greet with Senator Sandra O'Brien at Robbie Lee's from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. on August 24th as well. She's the senator for the 32nd district, which of course, coverage in Falls. So she's interested in trying to meet some people in New Falls and get to know some of the residents, some of the people in official positions here in town. Lastly, I've spoken over the last couple of weeks. I've spoken to several residents, a few that are at the meeting tonight, about some of their issues and things that they're going through, and had some really great conversations and dialogues. So please continue to call, continue to send emails, and I will continue to try to work with everybody that reached out to me. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fritz, do you have anything for the law director?
No, sir, nothing to report.
Okay, any questions, comments, concerns for the law director?
Yeah, just one, Mr. Fritz. Have we done anything at all on the, with planning and zoning, or have they done anything that you're aware of on the drug rehabilitation houses?
No, but
I can't hear
I'm not
you.
sure if planning and zoning have done anything, but I would expect that I'll be giving them some sort of paperwork in the next week or so to present to them so they can start their discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Fritz. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Zimmerman, Ms. Blitzer, do you have anything?
No, thank you.
Mr. Kropp, do you have anything for the law director? Okay. He's muted himself?
Yes.
Okay. Tell him to just keep himself unmuted. If he talks too much, we'll have the police officer escort him out. Hey, Tom, if you could, too, also, we're going to have the city manager, if she has anything also next, so I don't know if you want to, how you...
Mr. Mayor, she's on a speakerphone awaiting, and I can confirm that she's good with audio.
Okay.
What did he say?
City manager
City manager's
report.
going to come on.
She's
audio.
going to...
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. At this time, Mr. Mayor, I have nothing to report, but at the next meeting, I'm sure I will have a list of various items to go over with council and the public.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody on council have any questions, comments, concerns for the city manager? Mr. Boriak, you have the floor.
It's only been a few days, but I really want to give a kudo to Mrs. Pretty. She's taken on a tremendous load, and she's working very hard to try to get acclimated, and there's been a lot of outside issues. There's a lot of issues that she's looking at right now, and I would, the public, to bear with us, because we're going to be open and we're going to right the ship for the community and the public. Her whole goal, I feel, is to be open and work with the people in Newton Falls. I think she showed that in 3 or 4 days already. I appreciate it. Let me say that. Thank you.
Ms. Blitzer, or Mr. Zimmerman, do you have anything for the city manager?
No, sir.
Mr. Zimmerman?
No, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to agree with Mr. Boriak. You can obviously see that there's a lot of spots open in the room here, so she's had her share of challenges, and I think that she's done well trying to figure out even where codes are at, where phone numbers are at, and anything else, and has done a real nice job. I just want to make her head swell a little bit by telling her what a nice job she's done. Myself, reports, I've had a lot of responses, messages by individuals here in the room, as well as people in the community for different things that are going on, different ideas that you have that I really appreciate. Had a nice event that I got to go to the other day. It was the 90th birthday celebration for a longtime resident, Genevieve Staten, if I pronounce that right. The only bad thing for her is she got to hear me sing happy birthday to her, so it wasn't the best gift to give to her, but I really enjoyed it and appreciated being invited. Also tuned into the Board of Elections referendum meeting the other day. Attended the Heritage Accord planning meeting for the community center, which is exciting to see what's taking place there. And also Falls Family Care was invited there as they donated $1,000 to open a community center up. And I do want to say thank you to them. And had a meeting with State Senator Sandra O'Brien the other day, talked about various local topics as well as many here in our own community, and have a meeting scheduled for Wednesday to meet with School Superintendent Rocco Aducci on the school's plan for the athletic complex. So that's kind of exciting stuff. And just as a reminder, so it doesn't slip between the cracks, that you have until through this Friday, anybody that's interested in the Ward 4 position. You have to live not only in the community, but you have to live in Ward 4 and give a letter of interest to the city clerk as well as to myself. And, you know, you have through Friday to do so. And that's all I have. Changes to tonight's agenda.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Now I think my audio is working off. Is it okay to ask a question of the law record?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Fritz, I attempted to ask a question a minute ago. You referred to documentation paperwork you were going to send to the planning and zoning department. Could you please send that to members of council as well, when you send that out to the planning and zoning department, please?
Sure.
Thank you, sir. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and for additions to the agenda, I'd like if somebody wants to make a motion to add.
Kenny, is your microphone on?
Yeah, I think so. Test, yeah. I just need to move a little closer. Somebody wants to make a motion to add ordinance 2021-13, that's the AMP-T to change to accept for $10 million.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, if somebody wants to second it.
I'll second it, and I want to mention that it should be added to public hearings and old business.
Yeah, public
Unfinished
hearing
business.
number 6 and unfinished business number 10. Okay, so we have a first and a second on that. Go ahead and call for a roll to add it to the agenda.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Ms. Spletzer?
Yes.
Mr. Crop?
Aye.
Okay, so it's added to tonight's agenda under, as we said, number 6 for public comments, number 10 for unfinished business. Approval of the minutes, and I don't know if we should have that on because we haven't seen the minutes, so I don't know if that's, you want to pull that from the table? Is that what we want to do, or do we want to?
Mayor,
Yes.
I was told that we would have that in a week or so by when Mrs. King came back. Is that true?
I don't know.
Mr. Fritz, can you help us with that, sir?
All I can indicate now is, as it stands now, our city clerk is not scheduled to be back, and we're not sure. Originally, it was supposed to, she should be back tomorrow, but I've received no indication of any extension or the fact she won't be here. I would expect that the minutes from the last meeting and the special meeting, when she returns, will be available at the following regular meeting that we have scheduled.
Okay.
For purposes of tonight, sir, we could just skip the approval of the minutes because we don't have them in front of you.
Yeah.
I think we approved at a later date.
Okay, sounds
Do we have
good.
to skip them or table them?
Skip them.
Just skip them.
Okay. Public hearings, if Mr. Fritz wants to read.
First
number
public
1.
hearing is on ordinance 2021-08, an ordinance to amend Administrative Code 121.03F to have council members' legislative submissions to be named sponsor and allow co-sponsor additions.
Okay, if anybody wants to speak on that. Okay, if not, then that one's closed. Okay, number 2.
Public hearing on ordinance 2021-09, an ordinance to amend Administrative Code 12103 to have legislative submissions time recorded and placed on the agenda chronologically.
Okay, if nobody wants to speak on that, then it's closed. Number 3.
Thank you, sir. Ordinance 2021-10, an ordinance to amend Administrative Code 12101B to describe council chambers.
Okay, if nobody wants to speak on it, it's closed. Number 4.
Ordinance 2021-11, an ordinance to amend Administrative Code 12103 to have no current and/or former elected/appointed legislative officials hired for a period of at least 2 years from the time the official left office.
Katie Carl, 128 West Quarry. I think you're doing a disservice again to the citizens of the city and to yourselves when you do this. You're not being fair. That's all I have to say.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, if not, then item number 4 is closed. And number 5.
Ordinance 2021-12, an ordinance to amend Administrative Code 12103 to include no current and/or former elected/appointed legislative officials shall be permitted to do business with the village for at least 10 calendar years from the time the official has left office.
Yes, me again. Okay, this one is, I guess the question is that I had, and it wasn't answered yet, if this goes for current contracts that the city has, all right, I said that backwards. If there's contracts currently with the city, do those still stand? Does that negate any current contracts? If that could be answered before this is voted on, please. And that means that no bids can be made for anything, whether it's tree service, garbage, or anything else, so you're cutting your own throats. And no more under the table either. So, thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else for number 5?
Dave Hanson, 43 to 65 Warren Road. The language is pretty vague. 10 years is a long time. A lot of things can change in 10 years. 2 years. The other part of it is, where are we going to go with the economic development from here? Who's going to run the show with that? Who's got the qualifications? That's what I thought. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else for number 5? Okay, if not, number 5 is closed. And last, Mr. Fritz, do you have number 6?
Sir, that ends the public hearing, sir.
No.
No.
No, we have the 2021-13, the AMP T1.
I didn't know if you had the paperwork in front of you. I could read it if you...
If you would, sir.
Okay. Ordinance 2021-13, an ordinance to increase the total amount of money payment Newton Falls City shall require to sell transmission lines and equipment and to include property and miscellaneous materials in Ordinance 2021-02 Rate Reduction Act. The new minimum required payment acceptable to the $10 million to also include a 20% increase as a minimum payment for a service agreement. This is to be negotiated with AMP T. Do we have anybody who'd like to speak on this?
I would. Again, as I stated in public comments earlier, I didn't know this was going to be a public hearing. This was all worked out, and I would like to disagree with Mr. George. Yes, he's the expert on the electrical. I'm not. But all of these things were worked out with the contracts and everything else so that it would be in the best interest of us as a village and a city. And for the transmission lines, for this whole project and everything, for us, for the transmission lines, for that, this is something that is going to be for the betterment of us, but not for more money. That's not right, because that's going to come back on us, as I said earlier. That will come back on us, because then they're going to charge us more for our electric. If we charge them more for the lines and everything else, that will come back on us. That's going to come back and bite us. One way or the other, that will come back and bite us. And if you figure it out this way, the way it was explained to us way back when this first started, that if we do it this way, then we will not have to put the money in ourselves. Our guys will have their jobs. They won't have to worry about it because they'll have that. Yes, they will. That was all explained to us. And I don't know why everybody didn't understand that part when it was explained and why the contract wasn't read correctly. Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else like to speak on number 6? Mr. George?
I just had a couple of things to say. I don't think this is necessary because from the way it was explained to me in a supervisor meeting previously that there was nothing signed. It's not a contract because it's not been signed. So we have no deal to say. So I mean, I just think if nobody signs it, it's dead in the water anyhow. So raising the price, I don't know if somebody signs it. Yeah, that's going to get us more money, but I think as right now, it's dead in the water. So that's all.
Anybody else? Okay, if not, it's closed. And where are we at here? Unfinished business, number 1, if Mr. Fritz wants to read that.
Ordinance 2021-08, an ordinance to amend Administrative Code 121-03F to have council member legislative submissions to be named sponsor and allow co-sponsor additions.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Ms. Spletzer, do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Crop, any discussion? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have the floor.
Yes.
These agenda items, these administrative code changes, I think are crucial. This in particular, just as one of the members of the public spoke earlier, Mr. Richards commented on just the need for regaining, rebuilding trust in the community. This is one of those steps that will get us one step closer to that. I think it's really, really important.
Mr. Zimmerman, Ms. Spletzer, Mr. Bariak. If no other discussion, we'll call for the roll.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Ms. Spletzer?
Yes.
Mr. Crop?
Bill Alley.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Okay, passes. Okay. Number 2.
Ordinance 2021-09, an ordinance to amend Administrative Code 12103 to have legislative submissions time recorded and placed on agenda chronologically.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Crop. Number 2, do we have any discussion? Okay, if there's no discussion, if we want to call for the roll.
Ms. Spletzer?
Yes.
Mr. Crop? Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Okay, passes. Okay, read number 3.
Ordinance 2021-10, an ordinance to amend Administrative Code 121.01B to describe council chambers.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Bariak, do we have a second?
Second.
Spletzer? Okay, any discussion? Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman, did you say something?
Yes, I'd like to say something real quick. That the Administrative Code, Section 121.01B, already states that all meetings of the council shall be had in the council chambers unless otherwise ordered by council. So I don't understand why we need to make a change to say anything other than what's written here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure. Any other discussion? Okay,
Yes, I'd like to be recognized too. I agree with Mr. Kropp. I had found that as I was previously doing research, the year of 2020 started out having meetings over in the old municipal building where the courthouse is now and the police station and the fire department. Then we went to the football field. Then we came to this building. So every single minutes just said it was held in council chambers. I had a tough time figuring out exactly where was the meeting that I was trying to find held. So, you know, having a more descriptive and a more accurate description of actual council chambers would help.
Any other discussion?
Oh, yes, I don't know why that's exactly important, because we switched 3 times this year, then we wouldn't be able to have a meeting anywhere else until council voted on it. So we may not have had council meetings open to the public in that time period. We would have had to cancel meetings because we couldn't have them in the designated chambers, which would not be open to the public. It would not be very transparent. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else before we call for the roll? Sure. Mr. Kropp, you have the floor. Ms. Blitzer, Mr. Barrick, do you have anything before we call for the roll? Okay. Mr. Fritz, if you could call for the roll here.
Mr. Kropp.
Aye.
Mr. Zimmerman.
No.
Mr. Bariak.
Yes.
Ms. Blitzer.
Yes.
Okay, passes. Okay, if you want to read number 4, Mr. Fritz.
Ordinance 2021-11, an ordinance to amend Administrative Code 121.03 to have no current and/or former elected/appointed legislative officials hired for a period of at least 2 years from the time the official left office.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this legislation, I want to make it very clear, Mr. Fritz read the title, but if anybody has the actual full agenda, has the actual ordinance in front of them, it states that this isn't a complete handcuffing again. The council still would have the ability to approve a move like this. If they wanted to have someone be hired by the village, or if they want to have somebody do work for the village, or either one of these ordinances we're going to discuss, the council will have the ability to do that by 2/3 majority, which just means that it's more than a regular majority. It's going to have to be something that's pretty important to make, 4/5 of council or 2/3 of the council vote to pass something like that. So it's not like it's an impossibility. And I know some of the residents, a couple residents have mentioned that, we're going to be kind of handcuffing ourselves or something along those lines. I disagree. The council itself will have the ability to make that decision, and that's what's important. The idea is to not have legislative officials come in and get hired or work for the village without the approval, just willy-nilly. We've had instances where individuals have actually done that, and I think there's ethical questions myself, so I think that's important to discuss. And I also wanted to touch on something I think Mrs. Carl mentioned in the public hearings. She asked about this being retroactive. I asked Mr. Fritz at the previous meeting before. I actually included language in this when I submitted it to have henceforth, meaning that this would not be retroactive. This would not be something.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Just one thing, if I may be recognized,
yes,
sir.
you have the floor, Mr. Bryant.
There was a remark made by one of our councilmen that this was particularly made because of 2 people. I do not believe that. I believe it was made to better the city and not to single anybody out. And these are the kind of remarks that we've got to quit making if we're going to start to work together. We got to quit this infighting and he said, she said, and trying to get at people. And I want the public to know, rest assured, I will not vote for something that would be prejudicial. It's for the betterment of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zimmerman or Ms. Spletzer, do you have anything before we call for the roll?
Yes, sir. Again, I will state my objections just like last meeting, that say this for what it is. This is the Waddell ordinance. This is pretty much, no matter what anyone says, that's what this is geared towards. We have good people that can contribute a lot to the city after they leave office, before they leave office, while they're in office. This is going to handcuff. This may put a limit on what's available to the city on short notice. I'll address that with the next one, but thank you.
Ms. Spletzer, do you have
May I
anything?
be recognized, please?
Yes.
I would just like to read the specific verbiage that does come from Section 1 of this ordinance. No current and or former elected appointed legislative official shall be permitted to be hired, employed, and or monetarily compensated by the Village of Newton Falls in any way for a period of at least 2 calendar years from the time the official has left office for any reason, term limit, resignation, removal, etc., unless approved by 2/3 majority of City Council. So there is a way that 2/3 of City Council can hire if they feel that this person is so integral and needed. 2/3 of City Council can approve a former elected or appointed official.
Okay. Anybody else before we call for the roll?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure.
I want to address, Mr. Zimmerman's made a couple comments and referred to a certain individual. This was directed at a certain individual. In actuality, I'm the one that submitted this, and it had nothing to do with that individual, so I want to clarify that right now. There's actually another individual that this is in reference to, and I'm not going to name this person, but if anybody's been paying attention to the last couple of years, when our last village manager was hired, they were hired by a group of people, and then one individual actually stepped down from their position and took a job that was created by that village manager. They just hired him, and that position didn't exist until that person was hired. This is what I'd like to try to stop, is that we have someone, an elected official, who took a job in the village after hiring the new village manager, the former village manager when they were hired. That's what I would like to stop. I think that's unethical, in my opinion, and those are the kind of things I would like to not see happen. And if council so chooses and wants to have something like that happen, or feels the need to have someone like that on our staff or part of the village, they still have the ability to do that, but it's going to take more than just a simple majority. It's very simple. So I just wanted to clarify that to Mr. Zimmerman. He's wrong.
Anybody else before we call for the roll? Okay, Mr. Fritz, if you could call for the roll.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Ms. Spletzer?
Yes.
Mr. Kropp? Mr. Zimmerman?
No.
Okay, passes. Okay, if you want to go ahead and read number 5.
Ordinance 2021-12, an ordinance to amend Administrative Code 121.03 to include no current and/or former elected/appointed legislative officials shall be permitted to do business with the village for at least 2 calendar years from the time the official has left office.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Just again, real quick, I'd like to say, just like last meeting, call this for what this is. This is the Alberini ordinance. Let's move on from there. Let's say it what it is. We have ethics guidelines in place already to see who the city can spend money on, how they can pay people in times of need. They were addressed at the time, and it was found to be okay. It's going to be, if it's found not to be okay, it wouldn't have happened in the first place. So, just let this stand. Thank you.
May I have an address?
Yes, Mr. Boriak, you have the floor.
I don't know what Mr. Zimmerman's talking about who approved what, or this or that. I don't know what instance he's talking about. So if he's going to start making accusations again, tell me exactly what you're talking about so I can respond, and if not respond, allow to respond. Let the public know what you're talking about. It's been okayed. Who okayed what? What was okay? All it is innuendo. Do you want to bring up what you're talking about?
Okay, is that all you have, Mr. Boriak?
That's all I have. I just don't know what he's talking about.
Okay,
How can I agree or disagree with him?
Ms. Spletzer or Mr. Crop? You have the floor, Mr. Crop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In reference to this legislation, again, if Mrs. Spletzer read the specifics of the actual last piece of legislation, and this legislation is written very similarly, again, council will still have the authority and the ability to approve something like this as far as doing business with a former, elected or appointed official. So that's not, again, not reading it. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult. It's going to have to be something very important, something noteworthy or required. And my concern is when you have members of council or former public officials that have spent numerous years on council doing all sorts of business or working with individuals around the state or around the county or locally or outside the state, all kinds of different connections, and then when they leave office and it seems as though they could potentially benefit from the relationships they built or the involvement of the engagement that they take place with their position as a council person, then yes, that is very concerning. Some would utilize their position for a long period of time to potentially set themselves up for a windfall or something in the future by doing business after they've stepped down or after they've left office. I think that's a huge ethics concern. Whether there's ethics laws or ethics rules in place or not, there's a safeguard in place that gives power to the council as opposed to just state agency or something along those lines. This is just another line of defense or another line of protection for the public and for the council. I think that's a very, very important thing to have. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Spletzer, would you like the floor before we go ahead and call for the roll?
I would just like to emphasize that this one also does allow it to happen if it's approved by a 2/3 majority of council. What each of these pieces of legislation does is it takes it out of the city manager's responsibility completely. That way, the city manager must come to council and get approval to move forward.
Okay, any second addresses before we call for the roll? Okay, if not, Mr. Fritz, you want to call for the roll?
Ms. Spletzer.
Yes.
Mr. Crop. Mr. Crop.
Mr. Crop.
You're muted. Aye. He's giving a thumbs up here, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Mr. Zimmerman.
No.
Mr. Bariak.
Yes.
Okay, passes. All right, if Mr. Fritz want to read number 6.
You already want to have the resolutions before the addition of the 2021-13 that we added? Or would you like to do that now as part of the ordinances?
What is that?
We added the 2021-13 from the last special meeting.
Yeah, we were going to do that as number 10.
All right, sir, thank you.
Okay,
Then
thank
number
you.
6, Resolution 24-2021, a resolution accepting the amount and rates determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Crop. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. You have the floor.
I'm looking at the ordinance here and it's tabled. Do we need to make a motion to untable this, or what's the motion that we brought on the floor right now?
No, I think it was tabled until the next meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So it's on the floor right now.
Wait a minute.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Mayor Klein, may I have the floor, please?
Yes.
Could I ask a question? It says, tabled must be approved by October 1st, 2021. What did we We didn't table this last time?
Yeah, we tabled it the last time until.
To when?
Whatever that date was, I don't have it written down here.
We didn't get minutes.
No, but I mean, that's on tonight's agenda, the October, or whatever the date was that was written down there.
Mr. Chair, may I have the floor?
Yes.
I know a little bit about this. If it was put on there to be approved by the October meeting, there is some issue with the signature.
Okay.
So I would recommend that you table it again.
I understand, and I would agree that there is a signature problem, there's an approval problem, and my suggestion would be that we keep it tabled until October, okay?
Yes, or at least the second meeting in September.
Second meeting in September. I'm
Okay.
sorry, may I be
Yeah, go ahead,
addressed?
Ms. Bletzer.
Something else that needs to be clarified is that there's a difference between accepting an amount and rates and then an alternative tax budget. And what we were included with in the minutes of this packet is the alternative tax budget information, which is something that's completely different than a resolution accepting the amount and rates, determining the budget commission, and authorizing the necessary tax levies. They're two completely separate, different things. I have one of each, and neither one of these things looks like the other. So this definitely needs to be tabled.
Okay, does anybody else have anything on this?
Oh, yes, I just have a quick question. You mentioned that there was a signature issue. What is a signature issue?
There's questionable, the only I'll go into right now since it's on, we're discussing it, is there's questionable of who signed for it, who wanted it passed or whatever. That's within question right now. Anything else?
Mr. Klein.
Mr. Zimmerman, does that answer your question?
Just the question of who wanted it passed as far as what's the signatures on the resolution itself or on the budget?
On the budget itself.
So the signature on the budget, how does it have to do with who asked it to be passed?
The individual doesn't work here anymore, so we can kind of
So
read
his
between
name
the
would be
lines
on the
and figure
budget.
that out.
His name would be, okay.
Okay. And just saying something that important, we just want to make sure there's clarity before we.
I just was wondering whose signature we were talking about.
Okay. Did somebody else have a?
I missed a part of that. Your phone wouldn't work.
Okay.
What are we doing now, Mr. Klein?
I'm asking that we table this alternate tax budget resolution right here until.
Nope, that's something different.
Okay.
See, they're two different things, and that's where the confusion comes in. The resolution itself says it was sponsored by the city manager, who is no longer the city manager. It contains a supposed acting finance director who was never approved as a acting finance director. You know, this whole thing, and there's a definite difference between the amount and rates paperwork, it looks like this, and this is what an alternative tax budget looks like. It's just a mess.
We had a date in beginning of October, end of September, either way, and we're obviously not real comfortable with something this big to do without being 100% sure on. So either way, it's probably a pretty smart idea to table it until, as long as we can kick the can down the road.
Could I ask the law director something? Are we allowed to retable this, Mr. Fritz, right now?
You most certainly can, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we?
Go ahead,
Mr.
Mayor.
Chairman, can I make a motion?
Yes. What's your motion, Mr. Crop?
I'd like a motion to table resolution 2421 until the second meeting of September.
Yes.
That's good.
Which would be
Second regular meeting of September.
I'll second that.
It's September 20th.
Okay. Mr. Fritz, you want to go ahead and call for the roll?
First of all, who seconded that?
Bariak.
I did.
Thank you. This is to table. This is a vote to table 2420-21. Ms. Bletzer.
Yes.
Mr. Crop?
Aye.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
All right. Tabled till the second meeting of September. Then whenever Mr. Fritz is ready, if you could read number 7.
Resolution 25-2021, a resolution to cancel the smart meter form and rate previously set by the village manager.
Okay, do we have a motion? Okay.
I motion.
Ms. Blitzer, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Boriak, any discussion?
Yes, I think this is something that council needs to get working on as soon as possible. I believe it is something that should be addressed by the Administration, Finance, and Audit Committee, perhaps, Mr. Crop, or if Mr. Fritz would recommend that we develop an ad hoc committee to deal with. This is something that needs to be handled by council.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Zimmerman's got the floor, Mr. Crop.
As Mr. George said earlier, he urged us not to pass this because of what's already in place, what's here in the city already. Plus, like I stated before, everything has fees. We eliminate the fees, everybody's going to opt out of it, and we're going to leave the city hanging on what we have already. Plus, like I said in the past, credit cards have fees to get bills. I mean, everything has a fee to opt out of something. So unfortunately, that's the way it is. Whether we like it or not, nobody likes to pay fees, but they are there. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Crop, did you want the floor?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you have the floor.
I actually agree with Mr. Zimmerman. Things do have fees. The one thing I would like to take a look at is if this rate is reasonable, is comparable to other rates. I know it was discussed by the previous village manager that these were comparable rates to some of the other power companies in the area locally. I would like to get more information. I'd actually like to speak with Mr. George, and I do like Mrs. Fletcher's idea of possibly putting this to a committee and involving these individuals so we can have some real long-term discussions, dialogue, to determine what the best way is. I think it's not going to be one way or the other. It seems like it's going to be more of a compromise. And in order to compromise, I think we need to sit down and have a long-term discussion. And we need to involve Mr. George in length, in depth, which we haven't really been able to do up to this point, and really get some deep understanding of what, so that everybody wins. I know that's hard to do. We don't want to leave anybody hanging, whether it be the village, whether it be the residents, even the equipment in these rooms we already paid for, etc. So I think this is something we definitely need to dive into, but a fee or a rate is something we're going to have to accept or live with. I just don't know if this is the right fee. I think we can discuss it further. That's all I have.
Mr. Klein.
Okay, Mr. Boriak, would you like the floor?
From what I understand, we used Ohio Edison's rate that they had determined to be a rate. I'm not here to argue that point right now, whether this is, could have been $1 less or $1. My whole argument, this was shotgunned and stealth bombered in on the public, and that's not open and transparent, and it usurped the authority of this council. And we don't want to operate, Mr. Bariak doesn't want to operate that way anymore. I hope I can speak for the rest of council. So I hope we get an ad hoc committee or whatever, and get some information out there, and then let the people decide after they've had some information. Thank you.
But before we look to see if anybody else has an address, and I got a question. Hold on for 1 second. And to Mr. George, at some other point, I'm just wondering if, with this being almost like a co-op situation, is there, what we'd be looking at, is there a number of the residents, a number that needs to be a set rate, or such that we can somewhere meet? Because I know that you have the meters that you have, but to where I don't know if you have all the meters that are needed in the community, if the rate is set lowered to help individuals, but to where you're not hosed and stuck with meters. I don't know if that's something that we can get before we would make a determination on this, if there's something like that. And it's, if you don't know, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot. Right, okay. All right, does
I'd like to be recognized, please.
Okay.
This is something that I sponsored, and I did so specifically because as the Ward 3 representative, I have the East River Gardens area in my district, and a lot of the houses at the East River Gardens area used to be duplexes. And since then, a lot of those have become, one big happy home establishment type things. However, the homeowners have never gone to the trouble or the problems of combining all of the utilities into one water service and one electric service. So if I own unit 100 and I have a 100A and 100B, but it's all one big happy home for me now, I'm still getting two separate bills. So that 29 something would apply to my unit A side of utilities, and that same amount would apply to my unit B side of the utilities. The other thing that I'm concerned of is we have a number of residents in the township that happen to have Ohio Edison as their electric provider, but they are with the city of Newton Falls as their water supplier. If they're going to pay close to $30 a month to opt out of a smart meter from Ohio Edison, I don't feel it's fair for them to have to pay another $30 a month for them to have to opt out of a smart meter from the city of Newton Falls. That's why I brought this to the floor. And, the way it was given to us, council was never consulted. Council was never involved in any of this. The former city manager just said, here's the rate, here's the form, and ignore what the charter says. The charter specifically says in Article 3, Article 3, Section 9, council sets the rates. I'm willing to work with an ad hoc committee and put together some, different ideas and come to a happy medium or an acceptable for all type of solution.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Klein.
Yes.
I want to tell the public that I'm not sure Ohio Edison is going to be going with smart meters. They say it's a thing of the future. My whole premise against this to begin with is that I feel that there's a lot of stuff we could have done with our own electric department. There's a lot of, excuse me, I'm lost my train of thought. We might have got a better deal. We might have been able to do it cheaper, very simply. It was ramrodded through, and I was told, or maybe I'm wrong, maybe I didn't hear right, that we needed that to get an electric rate reduction. Then all of a sudden, that wasn't true. We needed to sell our transmission lines or we wouldn't be able to get an electric rate reduction. I don't know what to believe. I can go back and get the minutes. I don't think I heard wrong. But the cost of these smart meters, time will tell if they are going to save us money. Because I think right now we're not allowed to referendum it. And I just hope we can do the best we can with what we got.
Okay. Mr. Kropp or Mr. Zimmerman, did you have a final address before we call for the roll?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
I personally would like to see this tabled until the next meeting and to put together an ad hoc committee that includes Mrs. Spencer and maybe myself or Mr. Zimmerman and Mr. Bill George and maybe anybody else Mr. Bill George would like to recommend to come together in the period between now and the next meeting, the next regularly scheduled meeting, to put together a report to address these issues as far as our compromised rate. Also to address the issue that Mrs. Pleasant brought up about individuals who are potentially paying 2 opt-out fees, to address that as well, and then potentially bring this resolution back to the floor in an amended fashion to try to address both of those issues and try to reach a compromise.
Okay. Mr. Zimmerman, did you have anything before we go ahead and move forward?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you guys want to vote on this or do you want it tabled?
I would like to make a motion to table it until, and I'm going to go again with the September 20th meeting, just to give us enough time.
Okay, do we have a second?
We're voting on tabling it now?
Yes.
Second.
Second. If Mr. Fritz could call for the roll.
Mr. Crop? Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Ms. Spletzer?
Yes.
Okay, tabled until the second meeting in September, and whenever Mr. Fritz is ready to read number 8.
Resolution 26-2021, resolution asking Pam Wolford to continue serving in the role of acting finance director on a short-term basis pending further decisions by council.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Zimmerman. Do we have a second? Okay, motion dies because of no second. Okay. If Mr. Fritz wants to read number 9.
1 second, Mr. Mayor. Number 9. Mr. Bariak made a motion to, seconded by Spletzer, to get a second opinion on Mr. Fritz's opinion on the referendum.
Did you guys want to pull that off of the floor since it really has no bearing? Or do you, I mean, if not, if somebody wants to make a motion, it's up to you.
Since I asked for it, I'd be willing, now that the, excuse me, now that the Board of Elections has ruled that we will have a referendum, I'd be willing to pull that right now, sir, if I'm allowed.
Okay, it's pulled off the agenda. And then number 10.
Mr. Mayor, could you read number 10? Because you have the
I got it, yes.
verbiage. Thank you, sir.
Is an ordinance 2021-13, an ordinance to increase the total amount of money payment Newton Falls City shall require to sell transmission lines and equipment, and to include properties and miscellaneous materials in ordinance 2021-02, Rate Reduction Act. The new minimum required payment acceptable to the $10 million to also include a 20% increase as a minimum payment for a service agreement. This is to be negotiated with AMP-T. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
May I have the floor?
Spletzer, Boriak, and
May I have
Mr.
the floor?
Boriak, you have the floor.
Mayor Klein and the public tonight, I would like to see this, first of all, the public is going to get a chance to speak and vote on whether they want it or they don't want it. I would like to put a motion on tonight that we table this till November 15th. That way, there's no coercing the public to vote one way or another. Let the people speak, and then we can revisit it at that time. That's a motion I'd like to put on tonight, sir.
Okay.
I'd like to make that motion that we table this till November 15th.
Mr. Boriak would like to make a motion to table this until the November 15th. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion before we call for the roll? No discussion? Okay.
Yes, I'd like to say I hope we have something to vote on at that time.
I don't know if, is this discussable, some, yeah.
No,
this-
for tabling, there's no
For
discussion
table,
on
it
it.
just goes right into a roll.
Okay, I would like to be recognized then.
Again,
You said you don't discuss a motion to be tabled.
Oh, okay.
That's why we're going to call for the roll to table it until the November 15th date.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Spletzer?
Yes.
Mr. Crop? Aye. Mr. Zimmerman?
No.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Okay, tabled until November 15th. New business. If Mr. Fritz wants to read number 1, which
Yes,
is
Resolution 27-2021, a resolution establishing a local fiscal recovery fund.
Okay, and before I go in, I guess we could, Do we have a motion to put this on the floor? Okay, Mr. Crop, we have a second.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Spletzer. And what I looked at on this was it's to set up Fund 233, to set up an account for the deposit of the COVID funds. Is that correct, either Ms. Purdy or Mr. Fritz?
That's my understanding, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Is there any discussion on this?
Mr. Mayor, that's my understanding also.
Okay. All right. Would anybody like to be recognized? Any discussion on this before we go ahead and call for the roll? Mr. Crop, you have the floor.
Just in regards to the language of the resolution itself, I'm looking at the four resolutions. This is whereas distribution of the funds will be made by the government must be properly recorded to ensure compliance. It is therefore necessary for the preservation of the health, safety, and general welfare. This isn't no form of an emergency. I'm just curious about the language, if someone could expound on the language of the actual resolution.
Okay. Mr. Fritz, you have any more information on that, whatever Mr. Crop's talking about?
Just what you added, Mr. Mayor, that is the purpose is to make sure that we isolate the COVID funds until a decision is made so that they can make sure it goes to the proper location upon use by the city.
Okay. So I suppose there's a different type of account or a different line item or whatever that's needed for that, and it needs to be set up. Okay. Does that answer your question, Mr. Crop?
Yes, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. If not, Mr. Fritz, if you want to go ahead and call for the roll.
Mr. Zimmerman.
Yes.
Mr. Bariak.
Yes.
Ms. Spletzer.
Yes.
Mr. Crop.
Okay, passes. Okay, and number 2 is Resolution 28-2021.
Resolution authorizing the city to participate in the proposed opioid litigation settlement plan of claims against distributors in the suits against AmerisourceBergen, Cardinal Health, and McKesson.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Blitzer, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bariak, any discussion?
Yeah. I wish the chief of police was here tonight. Does this, I will ask Mr. Fritz. Mr. Fritz, does this help our police department get money to fight the drugs?
Mr. Mayor, may I respond?
I think it's a reimbursement. Yeah, but yeah, you have the floor.
Sir, what happened is there's a class action lawsuit that was set up by the Ohio Attorney General's office and the governor's office in May of 2020. They were looking for having a certain number of subdivisions in the state agreeing to it in order to make sure it's proper to be placed in the settlement. They want to make sure the people settling on behalf of the opioid plaintiffs, they will want to make sure that they would be settling as many of their complaints as possible in order to have the settlement agreement approved by the court. The time limit in which the city and any subdivision can join has been extended repeatedly. At this point, they're close to having the necessary number for the class action lawsuit to be certified. So the Ohio Municipal League asked everyone to have this approved by last Friday. On behalf of the city, I signed saying that we are wishing to participate in this class action lawsuit. And I had to indicate that it would not have formal action by this board until this evening. And again, the concept is we think that we're looking at approximately $50,000. It's supposed to be earmarked towards opiate abatement. My guess is in most cases it will go to law enforcement, but there are other methods that cities can use it for as long as it goes for the specifics. When the full class action lawsuit comes in and the money is available, we will have our restrictions and know exactly how we may be able to apply the money. It's important that it's passed as a resolution this evening, though, in order to make sure we comply with the statutory requirement to become part of the class action lawsuit. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes.
Mr. Fritz, in regards to the assumed or the estimated amount of potential class action lawsuit, $50,000 you mentioned, and you say it's earmarked, would council have the ability to determine how that's utilized or how it's used, or would it just be, if the class action lawsuit goes through, would that just be earmarked for law enforcement?
My understanding is that it would be similar to what we have with our COVID fund. It would be placed in a separate line item, and then council could budget as necessary or give authority to the city manager or the police chief to use it as necessary.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, anybody else?
And if I may ask you a quick question, there was an article on this on the front page of the Tribune on Sunday. I'm sure a lot of people saw that. But just my question, it listed the top communities that could receive opioid funds. And Newton Falls, we were listed as number 5 on the list with a base, says 55% base of $51,473.56. And it also says incentive payments, 45% at $73,533.65. And it says that incentive payments provided over an 18-year period if conditions are met. So, I mean, I'm just trying to look for a little clarification. Is our base settlement $51,000? And then over an additional 18 years, get that $73,000 in addition to the $51,000?
If I may, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Respond. Mr. Zimmerman, you asked very good questions, and I will tell you that it's rather unclear. The class action settlement was somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 pages, and it will involve a couple of things. One is which one of the defendants remain involved with that, also the number of people applying for it. One of the reasons why we wait close to the end is to make sure it's of value to the city. I believe that you're looking at 2 separate payments. One is one that can be used immediately, and one that would be paid over a period of time. And I believe I was structured in order to make sure that the companies, the defendant companies involved, were able to fund those on a proper basis. They couldn't put all the money up front.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other discussion before we call for the roll? Okay, if not, if Mr. Fritz wants to call for the roll.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Ms. Spletzer?
Yes.
Mr. Kropp?
Aye.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Okay, resolution passes. Okay, number 3.
A motion to set Tuesday, September 7th at 6 p.m. for the first meeting in September due to the Labor Day holiday.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, do we have any discussion before we call for the roll? Okay, if not, Mr. Fritz, if you could call for the roll.
Thank you. Ms. Spletzer?
Yes.
Mr. Kropp?
Aye.
Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Okay, passes. Okay, want to read number 4, Mr. Fritz?
Motion to appoint Patty Kinnell to the unexpired term in the Newton Falls Joint Fire District Board commencing immediately and expiring 12/31/2023.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Okay, Mr. Kropp. Okay, any discussion?
I would like to be recognized, please.
You have the floor, Ms. Spletzer.
I don't know when we opened up advertisements for this position on the fire district, and I think it would be a wise decision to table it until at least the first meeting in September to give it, if there's anyone else in the community that would be interested in applying for the fire district position. I just think there needs to be more time left for the public.
Okay, any other discussion?
Well, I just want to say that I mentioned this last meeting.
Mr. Zimmerman has the floor.
I mentioned this last meeting in the closing comments that this was open, and we do need a person on that seat immediately. Ms. Cannell was very quick in getting an application in, so I recommend that we get this person on the board to help us out as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kropp, did you want the floor?
Yes, sir, thank you. The reason I second this is because I like Mrs. Spletzer, this was news to me, I guess, or maybe I just missed Mr. Zimmerman's comments at the end of the meeting last meeting. And I'm curious if this was actually advertised in preliminary publications, if it was shared on our social media, the official city page, or on our website anywhere, if there's any information anywhere other than just his comment. And if not, then I feel like this, we're going to do fire the service by only having potentially one person apply. And I don't know Mrs. Cannell, I don't know if that's our name pronounced or not, I don't know her, I don't know of her. So I would like to maybe table this over again, put this out for a full-on application to let the entire public know that this position is available and open. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Klein.
Mr. Boriak, would you like to, you have the floor?
All I know is that Mr. Dallas Young resigned. I didn't know whether we were using old applications, new have to reapply. I've never seen any applications come to me. I too would like to see this tabled, not to take a vote against this right now, but just table it to give somebody else a chance, and then we can go from there. And I would entertain the motion to table it till, what, first week in September, Mrs.?
September 7th.
To the September 7th meeting?
Okay, do we have a second?
Second on that.
Okay, if Mr. Fritz wants to call for the roll.
Ms. Bletzer?
Yes.
Mr. Kropp? Mr. Zimmerman?
No.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Okay, tabled until, what is it, September 7th? Okay. Okay, whenever Mr. Fritz is ready, if he was to read number 5.
Yes, 5, motion to reprimand Ward 1 Councilman Adam Zimmerman for comments made at the August 9th special meeting.
Do we have a motion?
I make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Bariak, you have the floor.
In the spirit of healing and working together, I'm willing to drop this charge, Mr. Zimmerman, sir, if you will tonight issue an apology to Mrs. Pretty. The remarks you made were inappropriate and untrue. If you just give an apology, I'll be willing just to drop this reprimand. And I don't want to bring other things in. There have been other times that you, like the Waddell, Alberini. There's been a lot of stuff that shouldn't be thrown around one way or another if we're going to work together.
I just want to know what grounds the reprimand is on in the first place. I didn't accuse anyone of anything. I just read what was public record. So how is that, how is reading the truth that is public record up for a reprimand?
You made accusations that aren't true, sir.
Which accusation did I make?
Well,
I just asked if the city needed this put on them at this time. I asked a question. I did not accuse her of anything. I did not say she was guilty of anything. All I said was, do we want this stigma right now? It was a question.
Well, may I have the floor again? What I'd like to see up here, I know I was brought up on charges. I'm not going to talk about myself. I wasn't even given a chance to apologize. I had to get a lawyer. And then the charges disappeared. What I'd like to do is that I'd like to just give the public a feeling that we are going to try to work together. And everything can't be negative, negative, negative. And he said, she said, they said. We're not dealing with elected officials who have to have very tough skin, and really it's very hard for an elected official to sue, being a public target. We're dealing with a private citizen, and some stuff can rise to libel. And I don't want to see this village sued, and I don't want to see any trouble. I want to move forward with openness and trying to get along. So I'd ask you tonight, if you just issue an apology to her, and I'll withdraw my motion, sir.
Okay, with that being discussed, I would think that Mr. Zimmerman would regret if any attacks on individuals' personal nature. That would be the ruling. But the fact of the matter is, when we look at certain things that walk the line, I've always been told that a little bit of poison in a glass of water, what is it? Is it a little bit of poison in a glass of water? No, it's a complete glass of poison at that point in time. And I bring this up because we've had too much poison in our community for a long time, and I'd ask the Tribune sitting there, as well as individuals in our community, to stop spreading the poison. And if Mr. Boriak wants to pull that from the table, I think that's a good starting point.
Can you apologize?
just let that be between him and Ms.
I
Pretty.
can't hear you.
I said, we're probably best to let that be between him and Ms. Pretty, the city manager, and you handle the end that you handle, and it's maybe pull it off. I mean, we've discussed it.
Is she willing?
Yeah, if you want the floor, Mr. Crop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In reference to reprimands and rules and order as far as council is concerned, we do have specific rules, and we do need to follow them, and it is important as imperative. I would like to use this meeting as an example of how we're trying to be better. We've been able to do this entire meeting without issue. We're about an hour, 40 minutes, and we've gone through a lot of business. We've done things very professionally. I think that the people in the public and the calendar are probably bored at this point because it's not been an eventful meeting, which is fantastic. I'm excited. As far as accusations or attacks, again, I think that's, if Ms. Pretty felt that was what happened, I think she would address it as well as she can. When rules are broken, I think we need to address it specifically. A specific rule is specifically broken, and we can point to that specific rule. We need to address it. I don't think there's a need for ticky-tack kind of things, and let's just get business done. I think Mr. Zimmerman, he shares his feelings and how he feels. Like I said, Mrs. Pretty has an issue with that. She is more than capable of speaking with Mr. Zimmerman. I'd like to personally say move past this. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Would you like to pull it, Mr. Bariak?
Well, I would like one more address first,
Sure.
please. These questions were brought up to me by people in my ward. I'm going to ask questions when I get asked them myself. I did not know that I had to be sorry for what I said when I was telling the truth. Mr. Bariak, if you want to reprimand me for telling the truth, go right ahead. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I have a second address?
Yes.
I'd just like to, Mr. Chairman, the comments that I just made as far as I push past this, digging your feet in, a little bit more and solidifying your position, claiming you're speaking the truth. I'd like to know exactly what specific truths, I know you're reciting, I know you're reading from, but let's just move past this. I don't think there's a need to dig your feet in and kind of solidify your position. Let's just move past this and do work for the village and for our decisions. I'm not asking questions. Let's limit the accusations. We're not accusations at all. And let's just move on.
Mr. Klein.
Mr. Bariak, you have the floor.
I would like a first.
Yeah, Ms. Spitzer.
Without having the minutes from either meeting, we don't have the minutes from the August 2nd or the August 9th meeting. I don't know exactly what came out of Mr. Zimmerman's mouth during that meeting, so I don't know that if he is claiming to tell the truth. I don't know whether to believe that or not. Without having the written verbatim minutes, in front of us, I just don't see how any of us can make any decision unless we're going off, our memory of what happened that evening.
Mr. Klein.
Yes, you want the floor, Mr. Bariak?
There's been look, I'm the last one that wants to be vindictive. There's been a lot of accusations made at these council members, all of us, either printed defenders, whatever else has been, so we can be slopped around and our integrity and our good name drug around the mud. Now, he who's free of guilt cast the first stone, and he take the log out of your eye before you try to take the splinter out of somebody else's eye. I will withdraw this tonight on the premise that we can start doing away with these personal attacks.
Okay.
I'll withdraw it tonight.
Okay. All right, so that's all the business. Public comments are open to non-agenda items at this time, so just give your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Anna Eby, 50 West 9th Street, Newton Falls. I just have 2 quick questions. And one is to please hurry on these smart meter things. because we got a postcard, and I do not need a new water meter. There's nothing wrong with my water meter I have, and I don't want them coming in and putting their new one, which is going to cost me more money, and that's a fact, to my house. So please, hurry on this, because I'm not calling them, and I have opted out. So this isn't a smart meter they're putting on, it's the new meter that's going to cost me more money. And the second thing I have, Mr. Mayor, I know I had texted you. I want to know what's going on with the, you were talking about putting concrete in, fixing up sidewalks and everything. And I had texted the mayor and told him that it's very expensive. I know when we had it done probably 15 years ago where I used to live, it was $250 a block. One block was $250. So my suggestion was get one place to do them all. The people are going to have to pay for it. But if you get one contractor to do it all, he may give you a big discount. So I really don't know if anything's being done with that, with Mr. Stimpert or not. But you could get different contractors. That's all. Thanks.
John Richards, 212 Albert Street, and I'll just make this quick. During the meeting, several items came up about the finances and the uncertainties on things. And we have a finance director that's highly qualified, and I believe she should be put back into her position and do her work. Thank you.
Tom Colosimo, Acting President of the Commerce Association. I have quite a few things to get through real quick. For everyone who is not on Facebook or just missed our announcement, the Newton Falls Area Commerce Association will now have a building at 17 East Broad Street in the heart of the historic downtown Newton Falls, next to the Yellow Church. We would like to thank Dr. Verbanek for allowing us the opportunity to lease this beautiful property. It is very much appreciated. We hope to work more closely with the city and promote commerce, economic development, town beautification, and to host many village events. Get a hold of us today, become a member, join a rapidly growing organization, be part of something truly special in Newton Falls. Also, the Commerce Association is working with the city to bring Dora to Newton Falls, a designated outdoor refreshment area from Center Street to Ridge Road. Basically, you can leave a bar or a place that sells alcohol like Faces, Amvets, Mi Amigos, or the Covered Bridge Inn with a drink in a designated cup and walk around outside the bar in a designated area and shop in participating stores and businesses like Fieldview Acres, Broad Street Vintage, or any other retail store. Garrettsville, Columbiana, Akron, Cleveland, and other communities are now doing this, and it's bringing more businesses to the participating area and is making it more like a tourist destination. Also this weekend is the community garage sale hosted by the Commerce Association, and on Saturday is Dicker Day from 9 to 4 p.m. Let me see here. There is no registration required to set up for Dicker Day, just a notification to the Newton Falls Area Commerce Association. Requirements to set up is that you are a Newton Falls based business and that you are willing to dicker or barter with your merchandise. The street will not be closed for the event, so all vendors are asked to set up on the sidewalk or in Four Corners Park. Businesses located on Broad Street get first dibs on sidewalk space in front of their respective shops. You can set up on the sidewalk in front of storefronts that are closed or not participating. We also have on August 28th, Music in the Park by Jim Gill. It's going to be the gazebo by the falls behind the McDonald's parking lot. And that is all. Thank you.
Bud Fedoroff, 321 Ridge Road. Now you know why the wife does not want me to come to meetings. But in any event, I do have one thing in particular will cost us nothing. And that's removing the little gate at the end of the parking lot that's owned by the city going on to LeMay, providing an exit for the parking lot from the city parking lot. I have no idea why that gate's still up there. That's a city street. We plow it, we take care of it, but yet there's a gate preventing people moving back and forth into this parking lot. That's easy. When you go out, go to the end of the parking lot and you'll see a gate preventing you. Yeah, in the back of the parking lot. Yeah, that forces everyone to go out the front door. Probably one other thing, and it's bugged me for a long time, when the city found it necessary to put armed guards to check citizens coming into their own building. Now, I understand when the court was up there, that was a court function. That was a court protection. That was for their security, to maintain a safe place for the judge. I don't really think we need armed guards to protect our current council. Maybe we did before, I don't know. They didn't tell me about it, but anyways, I don't think we need to protect council from armed citizens storming City Hall. I don't think we carry that much cash money in the utility department. I pay by check. I don't know other people come in with cash. And this has nothing to do with the guys that are back there working, making a couple bucks on the side. They're nice people, but I don't feel any need to pay them. Just simple as that. Thank you.
Hi, Marilyn Lee, 515 North Canal Street. I'm coming up to thank the community. I'm going to try not to cry. This Friday will be my son's very first football game. He will be playing in the band. He will be playing the cowbell and the tambourine. Little backstory on my son, he's 14 years old. He does have Down syndrome. He's wanted to be in the band since his older brother was in about 8 years ago. I have finally made his dream come true to be able to march on that field his brother marched on. And he's very, very excited. I want to thank everybody in the community, along with the kids that you're raising. Yes, Mr. Zimmerman, your kids. I want to thank you for raising wonderful kids that see my child and see that this is his dream and treat him just as if he was a regular kid. He is ecstatic to play. I wish all of you guys to come out. He will be center field, 50-yard line. I will be the one on the sidelines with boxes and boxes of tissues. I will also be on FaceTime with my son that's stationed over in Bahrain right now. They cannot make it, so that's a little extra emotions I have. But I want to thank the community for opening their hearts and letting my son, and especially to the band director, Mark, for helping and making my son's dreams come true. Thank you.
I also have an announcement to make in regards to August the 28th. There's going to be Pluck a Duck at the community center, and after that there will be the farmers market. Usually Patty Hans, our treasurer, would make this announcement, but on behalf of Laura Nyheisel and John Richards and Deborah Earle, 444 The People, a charity group, is going to be participating at the event, the farmers market. And we have a surprise for everyone. It's going to be very nice, but we aren't going to tell you. And we're going to want you all to come out and see it. And we will be there after you pluck your duck at the community center. Come down to the farmers market. We will have a great time. Thank you.
I just wanted to speak for the Community Center and Heritage Court. They're having their cleanup day on Wednesday, the 18th, from 6 to 8 p.m.
Name and address, ma'am, please.
Oh, Julie Lemon, 2750 East River Road. But they're having another cleanup day from 6 to 8 on Wednesday, the 18th. And so if you can come out, because I know they have the alumni coming in on Saturday. I think it's Saturday the 21st, I think it is, or the reunion people. But I love the community center. I've told several people, my grandfather was in World War II, my great-grandfather was in World War II, and my two great-uncles. And doing some heritage, I found out that my great-grandpa was 58 years old and used as a translator because he spoke fluent German. So for that many people in my family to fight World War II, which that building's for, it makes me proud, and it makes me thank everybody who's ever served our community. So if you can come out and help, if you can push a broom or a mop, and give the Heritage Accord some help, I'm sure everyone would appreciate it. Thank you.
William George, Electric Superintendent. I just want to bring up a couple of things about the AMI, which is the smart meters, just to answer some questions. I would hope that you guys would give permission for people to reach out to me to get answered the questions. I think I could answer a lot of their questions for them. Nobody seems to reach out and ask me personally, so I think we could get answers for that. So, and then the AMT, I would urge somebody from council to contact Lisa McAllister at AMP just to make sure that that contract was not signed for the AMT already. I know a week ahead before the previous city manager left, it wasn't signed, but he was still in office till Sunday, so I would just urge you check that. So, okay, that was all.
Mr. George, I have a question, if I may.
It's not question and answer section, I'm sorry to say.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, if not, we'll go into the closing remarks. If Mr. Zimmerman, do you have anything?
Yes, sir. I would like to repeat Mr. Kropp said earlier in his opening comments about that Coffee and Cars event scheduled this Saturday, the 21st, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's being organized by Mr. Nate McMurray over here off on Eagle Point. I would please urge everyone to come out here and support this. This is going to be the first event. As it says here, it's Cars and Coffee, or Coffee and Cars, however you want to say it. So please come out and support also our B Square Coffee at this time. A couple other things I want to address are the motion to table ordinance 2021-03 until November. I really, really hope that we still have something to vote on at that point, that this deal just isn't removed from the table and that there's nothing left for people to vote on. And I am just totally amazed that everyone up here that was against putting someone on the fire board right now, saying it wasn't advertised, these same council people voted for putting someone on the Parks and Rec Committee last meeting without it advertised at all. No resumes, no applications being accepted. Just took someone that turned in an application before and said, you're on it if you want it. Nothing else was advertised, nothing else was brought up to anybody. Last time I said that I would like to have seen it opened up. Now everyone wants to see this opened up for the same reasons that I brought up. Thank you.
Mr. Boriak, you have anything for Ward 2?
Yes. I'm not going to start an argument about applications and that. I just feel that this council is trying to move forward with giving everyone in this community some dignity and respect. I don't feel that was done in the past. And I would like to say something else. Our acting city manager, it's administrative about what we do with the finance director and that. I'm sure things will move forward. I'm sure things will be brought back to this council. And I want to let the cards fall where they may right now. In other words, there's being things looked at. Let's let things become clear before we, not being against anybody, for anybody. Let's just let it open. And I think things will work out. Saturday, there's a all-class reunion. I hope I see some of the classmates there down at, I plan on attending that. And I'd like to thank Mr. Fritz for finally doing something about these, helping the zoning board out. I appreciate that. That's all I have tonight.
Okay. Ms. Blitzer, do you have any closing comments?
Yes, I do. And, I just wanted to make sure that I took a moment to clarify, like Mr. Bill George tried to. What people need to understand is that the AMI, that's the smart meters. And the AMP-T is the sale of the transmission lines. I think some people are kind of trying to get those confused and crisscrossed. So let me make sure that I clarify for you all. The AMI project is the smart meters. The AMP-T sale is the sale of the transmission lines that we currently already own. And one of the things I was going to mention to Mr. Bill George about the smart meters, at this point, I'm only aware of people receiving the cards for the water portion of the smart meters. And I want you to know, I did call the number that was listed on the card, and I got to speak with Sabrina in Texas. And Sabrina in Texas told me that she would send me some information so that I could make an informed personal decision and do my own research. And Sabrina in Texas said she would have to send that to her supervisor. So I don't know, how long am I supposed to wait until this information gets to me? Because what I'm most interested in finding out is what is the specific model number, and where can I find more information about the device that they want to put into my house? But apparently Sabrina in Texas told me she would get that sent off to me. So just make sure you guys know that so far people are receiving the water portions of those cards. And AMI is the smart meters, AMP-T is the sale of the transmission lines, and I did have to look at my handy-dandy calendar in the phone. The next Park and Rec meeting is August 24th at 5:30.
Right.
And that's all.
Mr. Kropp, do you have anything?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much. I'll try to make it brief. I'm going to respond to Mr. Gordon as well, and Bill, if you don't mind, I'm going to share your contact information with everybody so they can reach out to you. So Bill's number, I'm actually on the village website right now, and I'm looking at his contact information. So his phone number is 330-872-7711, and that's the electric department. And you can send emails to the electric department by writing to electric@ci.newfalls.oh.us. So again, if anybody wants to reach out to Mr. George, I'm probably going to reach out to Mr. George myself. I have some questions. I would love the opportunity to kind of be far more informed than I already am. So that way I can help my decision. Anybody that reaches out to me as well and inform them and answer their questions. I think openness and honesty and the fact that Mr. George was unable to speak at a lot of these either town halls or just in general is awful, and that has to stop, obviously. So I'm glad that he's come up and made himself available and letting people know that he will be available to answer questions and work with the public. I think that's so important. Lastly, I would like to say that, again, I think I touched on this a little bit ago, but this is the type of meeting that I would much prefer to have for our village moving forward, where we're conducting village business. We're being reached out, we're being polite, cordial, and boring. Like I said, that's what a meeting is, essentially, it's doing business. So I hope we continue to move forward and look forward to the interview process coming forward with the council members. I'm anxious to start the process of bringing in a new city manager and work that vetting process as well. And to Mr. Zimmerman's point, as far as the fire board and the other boards, I think we all owe it to ourselves and owe it to the community in general to make sure that we have vetted people and that people in the Parks and Rec apply for a Rex position, and people either didn't take the position or stepped down after the fact or something happened. I think that was actually advertised previously, if I'm not mistaken. So I just wanted to make that point, and thank you, my colleagues, for everybody that's up there for having an efficient, well-run, non-Zoom meeting. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Pretty, do you have anything to close up for the city manager?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I could just take a minute. The two rooms, I'd just like council to know, the two rooms behind you have been opened up to make offices for the council members, so you can have your constituents back there as you want to meet with them. I've instructed security that the red room, which is the big conference room, that the executive sessions will be held in that room. There's also a room prior to that room where Mr. Kropp was doing a live one day. That room is going to be set up for council people to meet with department heads. You each will have an opportunity if you want to meet with them. They will bring the information necessary that you want to meet with them about into that room, and you can sit there and have your meetings. I've instructed security to open that up so that can be done. And also, Mr. Zimmerman, I would just like to address and just say I'm extending an olive branch to work with you. I would love to sit down and just speak with you at any time that you have some free time. My door is always open. I have an open door policy, so please come in and talk with me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. I just have a few things here, obvious things. Good positive meeting tonight, a lot of good discussion. You know, it was nice. We're getting through the meeting so quickly, and we had a lot of legislation because we didn't spend a lot of gotcha time, a lot of insult time and all that stuff, but we actually discussed, and I think we can expect that going further is a lot of times it's not only what you do, but it's how you do it, you know, that's important. So you know, we have a transition period going on. I know, like I said, Miss Pretty, our city manager, she has a lot that she's dealing with right now, even trying to figure out phone numbers of different individuals and stuff like that. A lot that she's working on as she gets some of the foundation laid, then we can move forward and have, I think, a real bright future for our community. A couple things that different individuals brought up, the concrete that Miss Eby brought up. I know that Mr. Stempert's trying to do things with the concrete as cheap as possible, or I should say inexpensive, not cheap. But in some of the items don't necessarily need complete replacement that we're hoping, and some of the items that a little bit of tender loving care and such. But I know that if it's bringing a contractor out to have it done, have one individual done in a day's time, it makes a lot more sense than having somebody you're paying for their time to come out over here and then come back a different time. You're absolutely right. That makes a ton of sense. And but I know that Mark's spending some time in getting it done. But I think I'm not the only one. Would say, though, the number one thing there is that we make a nice place, the sidewalks, and a safe place for the wheelchairs, the strollers, the people that are in canes and walkers, but we try to do so and, you know, without you know, being good stewards of, you know, not only the city's money but all the residents' money. Third, the gate in the back. What I was told when I pastored here, as well as is here now, that they've closed that, and different individuals can discuss this when the city manager comes in, when she's able to really work on business. But I was told it's to cut down on the traffic, that the streets over there, a small neighborhood, that you would get a lot of people from over here. Instead of going down hitting the lights, they would whip through the parking lot, and you would have people, Mr. Zimmerman's kids, playing out there, and you're got cars. That's what I was told. So it's a situation that between the city manager and council can talk about and individuals can talk about. I think you would suggest that you would rather not have cars whipping down your driveway, but something can be discussed there. Fourth, the security and stuff was brought up, and I don't know how much, and I don't want to put it out there. I thought it was not a good idea when it was put out there, the amount of money, but I was told the security is out there because of the money's going in the utility office. That's what we were told, at least initially. Miss Pretty and everybody here on council can discuss that and see what needs to be done. If we need to have zero security, if we need to have less security, we need to have more security, whatever it is. But I think that those are all things that you brought up, good points, everybody here, and I think that we need to look into each of the points. And then my last thing is Mr. Lee. I can't wait to go out and watch him Friday. As the movie said one time, I can't remember what movie it is. If my wife was here, I could ask her. We definitely need some more cowbell, and that's all I have. So if we have that's good. If we have somebody wants to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Okay, Mr. Knopp.
Zimmerman?
Yes.
Barrett?
Yes.
Fletcher?
Yes.
Crop?
Okay. Hi.
Everybody.